Funny how you never notice the exact moment your life starts falling apart. It's not some big, dramatic explosion. No warning sirens, no flashing neon signs. Sometimes it's just a regular Friday night. That's how it began for me. I should back up a bit. My name's Matt, and up until not too long ago, I thought my marriage to Jessica was rock solid. 7 years. 7 years of memories, routines, inside jokes. We weren't perfect, who is, but we were steady. Or maybe I was just blind. Probably both. So, that Friday, it was business as usual. Jessica had told me earlier in the week that she had dinner plans with some colleagues. Nothing fancy, she said. Just a low-key spot downtown, some team-building thing for work. I didn't question it. She even joked, "Don't wait up, babe, we'll probably talk shop all night." Classic Jessica, always keeping me in the loop. And I believed her. Because that's what trust is, right? You don't second-guess someone you love. You take their word for it. Simple as that. But that night, something felt off. I was wrapping up at the office, scrolling mindlessly through emails when this little voice in my head piped up. You should go surprise her. Bring her flowers. Be spontaneous for once. We used to be that couple. The just because flowers, the random date nights. Lately, we've been so caught up in work, life, adulting. Maybe I wanted to remind her and myself that we still had that spark. So, I left early. Stopped by a little flower shop she loves. The one with the peeling paint and the bell that jingles when you walk in. The old lady who runs it knows Jessica's favorite flowers by heart. Orchids. Always orchids. She smiled when I told her who they were for. You're a good man, surprising her like this, she said, wrapping them up in brown paper with a soft pink ribbon. Women remember things like that. I smiled back, but in the pit of my stomach there was this weight. Heavy. Unexplainable. The kind of thing you try to ignore because you don't want to seem paranoid. Driving toward the restaurant, that weight only grew heavier. Jessica had said they were going to this casual spot downtown, a place we'd been to before. Nothing fancy. But as I navigated through the busy streets, I saw her car parked in front of a place that was anything but casual. This wasn't some laid-back eatery with mismatched chairs and string lights. No, this was high-end. Crisp white tablecloths, a valet out front, soft jazz leaking out through the entrance. The kind of place you take someone when you want to impress them. Or seduce them. For a moment, I just sat there in my car, fingers gripping the steering wheel. Maybe I had it wrong. Maybe plans changed last minute. Maybe her boss decided to treat the team. Plausible, right? That's what I told myself. And then I saw her. Jessica stepped out of the restaurant with a man. Tall, sharp suit, perfectly polished shoes. He had that effortless confidence, the kind that comes with knowing you're desirable. The way he leaned in as he spoke to her, the easy smile, the casual touch on her elbow, it was all too familiar. Two in asterisk, mate. And Jessica. God. The way she smiled at him. It wasn't the polite, professional smile you give a coworker. It was softer, warmer. The kind of smile she used to reserve for me. I felt it then. That cold knot twisting in my gut. Doubt. Suspicion. Betrayal. It all hit me at once, but I couldn't move. Couldn't look away. He said something that made her laugh. That laugh of God, I knew that laugh. The one where she tilts her head just slightly, her eyes crinkling at the corners. I used to be the reason for that laugh. I could have confronted her right then. Walked up, orchids in hand, and demanded answers. But I didn't. Instead, I sat there, feeling like an outsider in my own life, watching my wife share a moment with another man. Call it cowardice. Call it denial. But in that moment, I chose to believe her story. Chose to believe in us. So, I drove away. The flowers sat on the passenger seat, untouched. A sad little bouquet that suddenly felt like a joke. When Jessica got home later, it was like nothing had happened. She came through the door, kicked off her heels, and plopped down on the couch like it was any other night. Dinner was good, she said casually, scrolling through her phone. Long, but productive. You know how these team events are. I wanted to believe her. Desperately. So I nodded, played my part, smiled where appropriate. But every word she spoke felt like glass in my throat. She mentioned the man Derek, she called him. Said he was just an old colleague she hadn't seen in ages. You'd like him, she said. Real funny guy. I wanted to ask more. Press her. But I didn't. Maybe because I was afraid of what I'd hear. Or maybe because some part of me still clung to the hope that I was wrong. That night, lying in bed beside her, I stared at the ceiling while she drifted off to sleep. The silence between us was deafening. I could hear the faint buzz of her phone on the nightstand, the glow of notifications lighting up her face as she slept. I didn't touch the phone. Didn't check. That would mean admitting something was wrong. But the doubt had already crept in. It was just a seed, but it was enough. And that was the first sign. If you've ever had a gut feeling about something, one of those nagging, persistent tugs in your chest, you know what I mean when I say the days after that night felt like walking on thin ice. Every little thing suddenly had weight. Every look, every word, every sigh, it all became suspect. At first, I told myself I was overthinking it. People have work dinners all the time. Maybe the restaurant was a last-minute change. Maybe Derek really was just an old friend. But that cold knot in my stomach? It wasn't going anywhere. Jessica didn't help. She used to leave her phone lying around without a second thought. On the kitchen counter, next to the bed, even in the bathroom. But suddenly it was glued to her hand. Always face down. Always on silent. When she wasn't holding it, it was tucked away in her bag or hidden under a pillow. And it wasn't subtle. One night, we were watching a movie on the couch. Halfway through, her phone buzzed. She jumped like she'd been electrocuted, snatching it up before I could even glance at the screen. She laughed it off, just work stuff, babe, but her fingers were trembling as she typed out a reply. I didn't say anything. I just watched. Another time, I offered to pick her up from work. She texted back, said she'd be working late again. Don't worry about it, I'll grab an Uber, she wrote. When I suggested swinging by anyway, her tone changed. Suddenly, the meeting was off-site and running late and not worth the hassle. That's when the pattern started. Late nights. Vague explanations. A growing distance between us that no amount of small talk could bridge. Jessica used to fill the room with her energy. Now, it was like living with a ghost. A polite, distracted, emotionally absent ghost. She wasn't being cruel. That was almost worse. She was sweet. Overly sweet. Like she was overcompensating. Asking about my day, bringing home my favorite takeout, laughing at jokes she wouldn't have found funny a month ago. It wasn't real. It was a performance. And I started noticing the little things. The way she avoided my eyes when I asked simple questions. The slight pause before she answered. The careful choice of words like she was editing herself in real time. One evening, we were cleaning up after dinner. Just the two of us, like old times. Out of nowhere, I mentioned Derek. I said his name casually, tossed it into the conversation like a pebble into a pond. Ran into a guy who looked just like Derek today, I said, watching her closely. You know, from your team dinner. She froze. Just for a second. But it was enough. Her smile faltered, her hands stilled over the sink. Then, just as quickly, she recovered. Oh? Small world, she said, too lightly. He's been around forever. You probably did see him. But her voice had this tightness to it, like she was holding her breath. That was the moment it clicked. Up until then, I'd been giving her the benefit of the doubt. Telling myself I was imagining things. That we were just in a rough patch. But that moment? That was real. That was Jessica slipping. After that, it was like a switch flipped in my head. I started noticing everything. She started dressing differently. Nicer. New clothes, subtle but noticeable. Dresses she hadn't worn in years. Makeup even when she was just going to the store. And perfume, the expensive one she used to save for special occasions. When I asked where she was headed, she'd say, oh, just errands or meeting a friend from work. But those answers felt rehearsed. Like lines from a script. I didn't want to be that guy, the paranoid, jealous husband. But she wasn't making it easy. One night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while she scrolled through her phone next to me, the screen turned away. At some point, she got up, said she was getting water, and took her phone with her. 15 minutes passed. I found her sitting on the couch in the dark, typing furiously, her face illuminated by that cold blue glow. When she noticed me, she jumped. Smiled. Said she couldn't sleep either. But her smile didn't reach her eyes. Then there was the work trip. It was a Thursday when she told me. Just a quick overnight thing, she said, nonchalant. Training session out of town. Nothing exciting. I offered to drive her to the station. She waved me off. Don't worry, it's all arranged. Company shuttle and everything. That was the final straw. I didn't say anything. Just smiled, kissed her on the cheek, and said, be safe. But inside? Inside, I was done playing dumb. The night she left, I waited. Gave it a couple of hours. Then I followed. I kept my distance, far enough not to be seen, close enough to track. She didn't go to the station. She didn't even head in that direction. Instead, her car wound through side streets, avoiding main roads, until she pulled into a quiet residential neighborhood I didn't recognize. I parked half a block away, watched as she stepped out, straightened her dress, and walked up to a house. Not a hotel, not a conference center, a house. And there he was, Derek. He opened the door, greeted her with a smile, pulled her into a hug that lingered too long, their silhouettes framed by the porch light. looking every bit like a couple. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel, my pulse pounding in my ears. It wasn't just a hunch anymore. It wasn't suspicion. This was confirmation. I didn't take pictures. I didn't need to. The image was burned into my memory. When she got home the next day, she was all smiles. Asked if I wanted to order in. Acted like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't spent the night in another man's house. I played along. But inside, everything was different. The cracks had been there for weeks. I'd been watching them spread, ignoring the splinters. But now the facade had collapsed. I knew the truth. And yet I said nothing. Not yet. Denial is a funny thing. Even when the truth is standing right in front of you, arms wrapped around your wife, denial finds a way to whisper. Maybe there's another explanation. Maybe you're being paranoid. Maybe you're seeing something that isn't really there. But the truth has a way of being stubborn. For days after I saw Jessica at that house with Derek, I told myself there was still a chance this was all a misunderstanding. Maybe it was just a poor choice of words on her part. Maybe work trip was code for some innocent project they were working on after hours. Maybe she had stayed at his place because it was closer or safer, or some other excuse she hadn't gotten around to telling me yet. But deep down, I knew. The shift wasn't just in what I saw. It was in her. Her smiles were hollow now. Conversations that used to flow easily turned into minefields. She would walk into a room, and the weight of unspoken words hung between us like thick fog. And her phone. God, her phone was practically surgically attached to her hand. The way she'd casually tilted away from me. The sudden bathroom trips mid-conversation. The hushed tones when she took work calls in the other room. Every little thing was a needle pricking at the bubble of trust one had once wrapped around us. I wasn't proud of what I did next, but I was done sitting in the dark. That Thursday night, Jessica fell asleep unusually fast. Or maybe she was pretending. Either way, her phone was plugged in on her side of the bed, face down as always. Normally, she would have taken it with her even into the bathroom. But not this time. Maybe she thought she was in the clear. Maybe she thought I was still playing dumb. She underestimated me. I waited until her breathing evened out, the soft rhythm of sleep or feigned sleep, filling the room. Slowly, carefully, I slid out of bed, trying not to disturb her. The phone was right there, unlocked with a thumbprint. And her thumb? Well, that was within reach. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. This wasn't who I was. I'd never gone through her phone. Not once. But trust is like a glass. When it cracks, even the tiniest fracture changes everything. With her thumb, I unlocked the screen. Her notifications were muted, but the messages were there. A conversation pinned to the top of her chat list. Derek Herb. The leaf emoji. Casual, friendly, innocent to the untrained eye. But I wasn't untrained anymore. I tapped it open, and there it was. The proof. The texts weren't graphic. Nothing explicit. But they didn't need to be. It was the familiarity, the subtext, the way they spoke to each other. Derek, dinner was perfect tonight. Feels like we can actually breathe when it's just us. Jessica, I know. It's like I get to be myself again. I wish it wasn't so complicated. Derek, it doesn't have to be. You deserve more than hiding in the shadows. There was a photo too, a blurry selfie of the two of them, wine glasses in hand, leaning close. The same smile she used to give me, the one that used to be ours. Message after message, scrolling through weeks of conversations, coordinating meetups, inside jokes, the kind of int asterisk Macy that had once been the cornerstone of my marriage. And then I saw it, the nail in the coffin. Derek, when are you going to tell him? Jessica, I don't know. He's been so good to me. He doesn't deserve this. But I can't keep living two lives. That was it. It wasn't just a fling. It wasn't some harmless flirtation. She was making plans. Our life, our marriage, was becoming a negotiation between my ignorance and her convenience. I closed the phone and placed it back exactly where I found it. I didn't wake her. I didn't confront her. I lay back down, staring at the ceiling, listening to the silence of our bedroom, a room that had once been our sanctuary but now felt foreign. Sleep never came. The next morning, I moved differently. Quieter. Calculated. I kissed her goodbye like I always did, but in my mind, I was already gone. At work, I couldn't focus. The usual noise of emails, meetings, deadlines, it all blurred into the background. I sat at my desk, staring at nothing while my mind replayed every moment of our marriage under a new lens. Every I love you, every late night, every excuse. Re-examined. Re-evaluated. I called a private investigator that afternoon. His name was Greg. Older guy. No nonsense. The kind of man who had probably seen the worst sides of people so often that nothing surprised him anymore. When I explained my situation, he didn't flinch. "I'll get you what you need," he said simply. It didn't take long. By the following week, Greg had compiled a folder. Photos. Locations. Timestamped evidence. Jessica and Derek at restaurants, parks, slipping into his apartment late at night. No room for ambiguity. No plausible deniability. One photo in particular hit me harder than the rest. It was Jessica standing on Derek's balcony holding a mug the same way she did every Sunday morning at home. That lazy, content look on her face. Only it wasn't her home. It wasn't her life. She had already begun building something new. I held on to that folder for 2 days. 2 days of pretending everything was fine. 2 days of watching her go about her routine, smiling, talking, living a lie while I carried the weight of the truth. But even lies get heavy eventually. That Saturday, I decided it was time. I came home early. Found her in the kitchen, humming along to some playlist, barefoot, making coffee like it was any other weekend morning. The normalcy of it stung. "Jessica," I said, setting the folder on the table. "We need to talk." She turned, surprised, wiping her hands on a dish towel. When she saw the folder, her face changed. Not shocked. Not confused. Just resigned. Like she knew the jig was up. "What's this?" she asked, but her voice had already lost its bravado. "You tell me." She sat down slowly, flipping open the folder. Her eyes scanned the photos. No fake tears. No dramatic gasps. Just a long, heavy silence. "I was going to tell you," she said finally. "No, you weren't," I replied, my voice flat. "You were going to keep living 2 lives for as long as I let you." Her hands trembled as she closed the folder. "I never meant to hurt you. But you did." Simple. Truthful. Heavy. She reached out, her fingers brushing against mine, but I pulled away. "I wanted to believe you," I said. "I really did. But you made sure that was impossible." For a moment, the only sound was the ticking of the kitchen clock. Each second stretching out longer than it should. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I looked at her then. Really looked. The woman I had built a life with. The woman who had slowly, methodically dismantled it. "What happens now," I said, standing up, "is that you face what you've done. And I walk away from this wreckage with my head held high." I left her there, sitting at the kitchen table, surrounded by the evidence of her own choices. That was the moment the illusion shattered. No more doubts. No more excuses. Just the irrefutable proof of betrayal. There's a moment right after a lie collapses where time stretches thin. It's quiet. Heavy. Like the air itself is holding its breath. That was the moment I left her sitting at the kitchen table, the folder of evidence wide open between us. I didn't slam the door. I didn't yell. I didn't give her the big fight I'm sure she had rehearsed in her mind. I just walked away. The thing is, it's not the confrontation that breaks people. It's the silence after. For the next 24 hours, Jessica tried to pretend that life could just go on. She didn't know how to act anymore, though. The script had run out of pages. That night, she didn't come to bed. I didn't ask where she went. I heard her moving around downstairs. At one point, she stood outside our bedroom door. I could hear her breathing. She didn't knock. Didn't come in. Just stood there. Then footsteps retreating down the hall. The silence was louder than shouting. By morning, the real unraveling began. Her first move was predictable, denial. Not of the affair, I had too much proof for that, but denial of consequence. When I walked into the kitchen, she was there. Same spot as the day before. The coffee was brewing. She was trying so hard to look normal, like muscle memory was going to save her. "Good morning," she said, soft, hopeful. I didn't reply. She flinched, just barely, but kept going. "I thought we could talk today." Really talk. About everything. I poured my coffee. The simplest act, but it felt monumental. Every motion deliberate. No wasted words. No wasted breath. "I know I've hurt you, Matt," she said, voice cracking. "But please, please don't throw us away without trying to fix it." That was rich? I looked at her then. really looked. She wasn't wearing makeup. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun. There were dark circles under her eyes. This wasn't the woman from Derek's balcony photo. That woman had looked alive, radiant. The woman in front of me looked wrecked. "You don't get to ask for mercy now," I said quietly. Her eyes filled with tears instantly. That fragile dam broke so easily. She crossed the space between us, reaching for my hand. "I made a mistake," she said, gripping my fingers. "A terrible mistake. But we can fix this. I can fix this." I pulled my hand back. "You weren't going to fix anything, Jess. You were going to keep lying until you got caught. Which you did. You had choices. You made them." She stood there, arms at her sides, like she didn't know what to do with them anymore. The ring on her finger, our ring, seemed to mock her. "I don't know why I did it," she said, shaking her head. "I was lonely, I guess. I felt unseen. And Derek was he was there. Unseen. I could have laughed. All these years I thought we were building something solid. Thought I was being a good husband. Turns out while I was busy making sure our bills were paid, our house was safe, and our future was secure, she was busy entertaining distractions." "Do you even hear yourself?" I asked. "You think I haven't felt lonely? You think I haven't had opportunities to step outside of this marriage?" "But I didn't. Because I believed in us." Her face crumpled. "I still believe in us," she whispered. "No, Jessica. You believe in not losing. There's a difference." That hit her. Hard. The rest of the morning passed in a blur. She tried every play in the book. Tears. Promises. Apologies. The remember when tactic, bringing up old memories, good times, trying to stitch us back together with nostalgia. It didn't work. Mid-afternoon, when she realized none of it was landing, her tone changed. "You think this is just my fault?" she snapped. "Like you've been the perfect husband? You've been distant for months, Matt. Always working late, always tired. Maybe if you had paid more attention." There it was. The shift from remorse to blame. "Stop," I said sharply. "Don't you dare try to paint this as my failure. You had options, Jessica. You could have talked to me. You could have asked for help. Instead, you lied. You chose the easiest escape route. That's on you." She deflated instantly, the fight draining out of her. "I don't want to lose you," she said, barely audible. "You already did." I left the house for a few hours after that. Just walked. No destination. I needed space. I needed air that wasn't thick with half-baked apologies. When I came back, the house was eerily quiet. Her suitcase was by the door. She was sitting on the couch, shoulders hunched, staring at nothing. "I'll go to my sister's," she said, voice hoarse. "I'll give you space. But please, don't let this be the end." I didn't reply. She took that as her answer. She picked up her suitcase, walked slowly to the door. At the threshold, she paused, looking back at me. "I know you hate me right now," she said. "But I love you, Matt. That's the only thing that's still true." I didn't correct her. She left. The door closed with a soft click. Not a slam. Just a click. Like the final note of a song we both knew had ended. For the first time in weeks, the house was truly silent. No more lies. No more pretending. I walked to the kitchen. The folder was still there. The photos. The texts. Cold, hard evidence of betrayal. I gathered them up methodically and placed them in a box along with my wedding ring. This wasn't an act of revenge. It was closure. Later that night, my phone lit up with messages. "Jessica. Apologies. Desperate promises." I read every one. Then turned the phone over, face down on the table. That was her move. Funny how habits come full circle. Friends started reaching out too. Turns out when someone's life implodes, the ripples spread fast. Some were sympathetic. Some offered advice. Some tried to play mediator. But none of it mattered. Because this wasn't about anyone else. This was between me, her, and the truth. The next few days passed slowly. Jessica's silence was deafening. I imagined her going through the stages, shock, bargaining, maybe anger next. But me? I had reached acceptance. The illusion was over. Our marriage wasn't about love anymore. It was about obligation. Habit. Fear of starting over. But now the truth was out in the open, raw and undeniable. I wasn't angry anymore. Just free. It's strange, the way life keeps moving after a betrayal. You expect some kind of cosmic pause, a moment where the world acknowledges your life has been split into before and after. But no. The sun still rises. The mail still arrives. The world doesn't care that your marriage has crumbled. Jessica left with that suitcase, but the wreckage she left behind stayed with me. The house was quieter without her, but it wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, suffocating. Every room felt like a museum of what used to be. Her coffee mug on the kitchen counter. The blanket she always curled up with on the couch. A stray hair tie on the bathroom sink. proof of her existence. And her absence. The first few days after she left, she kept reaching out. Calls, texts, emails. The tone shifted with each attempt. At first, it was apologetic. Matt, please, I'm so sorry. Please talk to me. Then it turned desperate. Don't let this be how we end. And finally, angry. Ignoring me won't change what we've built. You're being cruel. Cruel. That word sat wrong with me. As if choosing self-respect was cruelty. As if holding her accountable for her choices was an act of malice. But what I didn't expect was how quickly the collapse would accelerate. It started small. A mutual friend reached out. Hey man, just wanted to check in. Just mentioned you two were having a rough patch. A rough patch. That was her version. She was trying to control the narrative. Classic. But you can't outrun the truth forever. A few days later, I got a message from another friend. Not even a close one. Just a casual acquaintance who worked in the same industry as Jessica. Hey, Matt. Not sure if you know, but there's been some talk around the office. About Jess. About Derek. The walls were closing in. Turns out Derek wasn't as discreet as Jessica had hoped. Office gossip is brutal. Whispers had turned into open speculation. People love a scandal, especially when it involves coworkers sneaking around. The story spread like wildfire. The timing was poetic. While Jessica was texting me, begging for a second chance, her affair was becoming public knowledge. I didn't gloat. It wasn't satisfying. Watching someone you once loved unravel isn't fun. It's sad. Tragic even. But it was justice. The fallout hit her hard. She called me, voice shaking, telling me she was being put on leave pending an HR investigation. Her carefully curated professional image was cracking. The company cared about its reputation more than her excuses. I need your support, Matt, she said on that call, like the irony of her words didn't register. Support? Where was my support when she was sneaking off to Derek's place? I didn't say much. Just listened. Let her sit in the silence she'd created. Then came the inevitable. I got a call from Linda, one of Jessica's oldest friends. She didn't mince words. Matt, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I swear if I had known about Derek, I would have told you. I believed her. Linda's loyalty was to the truth, not Jessica's lies. She's falling apart, Matt. She's not handling this well. I nodded, though she couldn't see me. She needs to face it, I said simply. But the thing is, Jessica wasn't just losing me. She was losing the scaffolding of her life. Friends distanced themselves. Coworkers turned cold. Even Derek, from what I gathered, started to fade away. Maybe he hadn't signed up for the public humiliation. Maybe he realized he didn't want to be the guy who torched someone's marriage. Or maybe he was just a coward. Either way, the affair that had seemed so exciting in the shadows was withering in the daylight. Jessica was left standing in the rubble. She called me again. This time, her voice was small. Defeated. I lost my job, she said. They let me go. There was a long pause, like she was waiting for me to jump in to offer comfort. But I had none left to give. I'm sorry, I said, and for once I meant it. Not in a let's fix this way. But in the way you feel sorry for a building collapsing because its foundation was hollow. A few days later, she showed up at the house. Unannounced. I heard the knock but didn't answer. Instead, I watched through the front window as she stood there, clutching some papers to her chest. Divorce papers, maybe. Or some letter she thought might sway me. She stood there for a long time. Eventually, she left. That was the moment I realized she was no longer the woman I had married. Or maybe she never was. Maybe this was always part of her, hidden beneath the surface, waiting for the right cracks to appear. I started moving on in small ways. I boxed up her things. Her clothes, her books, all the little pieces of her that had been scattered through her life. It was mechanical. Therapeutic, in a way. Each item was a chapter one was closing. I donated most of it. No big dramatic bonfires. No revenge-fueled destruction. Just quiet, deliberate erasure. One night, as I was packing, I found an old photo album. Jessica and me on our honeymoon. Beaches, sunsets, smiles that felt foreign now. I should have felt anger, maybe even longing. But all I felt was distance. That was another life. In the weeks that followed, she stopped reaching out. I think reality had finally set in. The collapse was complete. There was nothing left to salvage. Our house went up for sale. Too many memories. Too much history. I needed a fresh start. A new space that wasn't haunted by her betrayal. Through it all, people kept asking me how I was holding up. Better than expected, I'd say. But the truth was more complicated. It wasn't just about losing her. It was about losing the version of myself that had believed in her. That blind faith. That unshakable trust. It was gone. And in its place was someone sharper. Wiser, maybe. Definitely more cautious. By the time the house sold, Jessica was a ghost. I hadn't seen her in person since the day she left with her suitcase. Part of me thought she'd show up again. One last desperate plea. But she didn't. Maybe even she knew it was over. The divorce papers came through quickly. No contest. She signed. I signed. Simple. Clinical. A fitting end to something that had once felt so sacred. The last time her name appeared on my phone was a simple message. I hope you find peace, Matt. I'm so sorry. I didn't reply, because I had already found it. Not in forgiveness. Not in revenge. But in letting go. That was the real collapse. Not of a marriage, but of the illusion.